The sun was already beginning to decline when the phone rang, breaking the comforting silence of an apparently ordinary afternoon. I was in the kitchen sorting through some old papers and thinking about the memories that Harper Farm always evoked, when the unexpected call pulled me out of that state of peace. As I answered, I immediately heard the unmistakable voice of my brother, Grant Harper. But there was something in the way he pronounced the words that made me shudder. Sold. The exclamation cut through the air, loaded with an energy that I could hardly comprehend at first. My heart raced, and for a brief moment time seemed to slow down. Still catching my breath, I asked hesitantly, "What are you talking about?" On the other end of the line, Grant's laugh was as familiar as it was disturbing. His tone carried an arrogance that had always irritated me. He didn't hesitate and continued, "I just received $5 million from the sale of our farm. And guess what? I'm going to use your share to buy a Ferrari." Before we continue with the story, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. This is very important to us. Thank you so much. The phrase struck like a blow. I, who had always cherished that piece of land where I grew up, now felt that something sacred was being dismantled before my ears. His voice, so confident and disdainful, seemed to mock what our family had built over generations. Suddenly, all the memories of our past invaded my mind. The sunny days running through the wheat fields, the laughter shared with grandfather Franklin Harper as we fed the horses, and the welcoming atmosphere of the old barn. But amidst these memories, a painful thought imposed itself. Grant would never have the right to dispose of something that had belonged to the family for so long. While my fingers gripped the cell phone tightly, a wave of anger mixed with disbelief coursed through my body. The spoiled brother, always obsessed with appearances and the big city life, had forgotten the bonds that tied us to the history and the land that shaped us. And worse still, he did so without even consulting me, not realizing that the farm was not merely a material asset but the legacy of our grandfather. I clearly remembered the days when, as a child, I would run across the vast fields alongside Grant. While he dreamed of the city, I found comfort in that bucolic scenery, in the simplicity of a life connected to nature. Grant always seemed to despise the importance of that place, considering it just an inheritance to be negotiated. But I knew there was so much more behind it. And then, in a little explored corner of Grandpa's old office, I discovered something that would change the course of this story: the secret deed. With my mind filled with anger and determination, I left the kitchen without looking back and got into the old car that always took me to the farm. Every kilometer traveled was a mix of pain and indignation. As the familiar landscapes passed by the window, I recalled the moments of closeness with grandfather Franklin Harper and the details of how he, with such care, had prepared the documentation that would now give me the strength to confront my brother. Upon arriving, the aroma of aged wood and old leather from the office enveloped me, bringing back an atmosphere full of stories. Without wasting any time, I went to the old desk where, amidst yellowed papers, lay the brown envelope. With trembling hands, I opened the package and saw the document that would come to be my salvation. An additional will, an ancient contract that had never been mentioned, but which stipulated that 51% of Harper Farm was designated to me. Reading that paper overwhelmed me. Every word seemed to echo Grandpa's wisdom, who had always been shrewd and cautious. Grant, in his blind greed, had completely ignored this crucial detail. He had thought that by selling the farm he could never hurt me. Little did he know that Grandpa, in his cunning, had prepared a safety net for the true family legacy. With the document in hand, the initial despair gave way to a sense of power. I knew that, legally, the sale he had made was null. But at the same time, a part of me mourned the betrayal that act represented, the betrayal of blood, of history, and of family memory. Grant was not just a brother. He was part of my childhood, but now his unbridled ambition had turned everything into a bitter dispute over what was sacred. As dusk settled, I sat in the car's seat trying to organize my thoughts. The decision was made. I would confront Grant and make every word of that document count. The secret deed was my weapon and nothing could stop it. What he thought was a momentary victory would turn into a devastating setback. The night fell silently over the farm, but inside me the storm was just beginning. Amid a mix of sadness, anger, and determination, I realized I was about to redefine the course of our history. Grant would never imagine that, at that very moment, while he was bragging about his conquest, I would be preparing the blow that would force him to face the consequences of his actions. As the clock ticked slowly, the feeling that everything was about to change dominated my being. And so, with the secret envelope firmly clutched in my hands, I knew that the real battle was just beginning. A battle for the legacy of Harper Farm. A battle for the justice that our grandfather had so dearly cherished. The next morning, the biting cold and the gray sky seemed to foretell the confrontation that was about to happen. I arrived at Hamilton Pierce's office with the firm conviction that justice would be served. The old building, which had witnessed countless stories over the years, was now to be the setting where I would reclaim what was rightfully mine. The aura of solemnity emanating from the environment made every step feel laden with a mix of anxiety and determination. Right at the entrance, I was greeted by Hamilton Pierce, the lawyer who had always stood by grandfather Franklin Harper. His expression, a blend of seriousness and empathy, showed that he understood the complexity of the situation. Without wasting any time, he invited me to sit at his desk, surrounded by stacks of documents and an air of confidentiality that only family secrets can carry. Eleanor Harper, he began in a calm voice while scrutinizing the papers with meticulous attention, your brother tried to sell something that did not belong to him. He didn't even have the slightest idea about the clause that guarantees you the majority stake of Harper Farm. I nodded silently. The anger burning in my chest mixed with a sense of relief. Even though I was pained by Grant's betrayal, the revelation of the secret deed gave me the strength to fight. Hamilton skimmed through the document, and a slight smile of satisfaction formed on his face. The sale that Grant made is absolutely invalid, he stated, emphasizing every word with the conviction of a man who was already one step ahead. Without your signature and without acknowledging the 51% that belongs to you, the contract is null. And not only that, we can and must file a lawsuit for real estate fraud. As he spoke, my mind wandered through the memories of days when the farm was a place of joy and family unity. I recalled the afternoons when Grant and I would run among the rows of wheat, the stories told by Grandpa, and the sense of security that that home provided us. Now that same sacred place was being usurped by greed and irresponsibility. After the meeting, I left the office with renewed determination. I knew that it wasn't enough just to know I was right. I had to act and make Grant feel the weight of his actions. So I grabbed my phone and called him, determined to confront him head-on, leaving no room for doubt. The call was answered by Grant, and his voice carried that same arrogance that so enraged me. Eleanor Harper, I hope you've calmed down. I've already chosen the color for my Ferrari. Red, of course, he said, as if simply hearing his own name made him feel superior. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, and responded firmly. Grant, we need to talk. No. He let out a contained laugh, dismissing my words with disdain. About what? About how you were left out of the biggest deal of my life. Accept it, little sister. You lost. But I couldn't let that irony pass unchallenged. In a cold, calculated tone I replied. Actually, Grant, it seems you were the one who lost. You couldn't sell the farm without my signature. I am the majority shareholder and the contract you signed is invalid. On the other end of the line, Grant's confidence wavered for a brief moment, replaced by a hint of nervousness. I continued without hesitation. If you want to see the documents, I can meet you at the farm right now. You should be there when I arrive. Without waiting for his response, I hung up the phone and felt a surge of determination take over me. That phone call was the spark for an inevitable confrontation. My mind raced with strategies and thoughts of retaliation, while the image of Harper Farm with its vast fields and the old barn appeared before my eyes as a symbol of everything I needed to defend. As time slowly passed, I prepared for the encounter that would change the course of history. Every detail of the documentation, every signature on the secret will, was a powerful weapon I was putting into play. And, at that very moment, I understood that the battle would not be just legal but also emotional. Grant's betrayal was not merely a matter of money or property. It was an affront to our entire family history. With my heart pounding and my mind sharp, I left Hamilton's office and headed toward Harper Farm, where I knew I would find Grant leaning against his luxury car, secure in the illusion of having conquered everything. The meeting was set and I was ready to show that when it came to legacy and justice, no one could stop me. The road to Harper Farm seemed longer and more solitary than ever. Every bend on the dirt road awakened childhood memories of the simple moments we shared with grandfather Franklin Harper. At the same time, the atmosphere carried an air of foreboding, as if the very land sensed that justice was about to be served. When I spotted the old rusty gate of the farm, A mix of determination and sadness took hold of me. I knew that meeting Grant was inevitable, that man who for so long had shirked his responsibilities and abused our trust. As I parked, I could see the morning light reflecting off the windows of the luxury car he had recently acquired. But to me, that symbol of ostentation was now just a fragile facade, destined to crumble under the weight of the truth. I approached with firm steps and soon found Grant, who was leaning against the hood of his vehicle, trying to appear calm and superior. He looked at me with a mocking smile, but I could see a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. It wasn't long before the tension became palpable. "You really think you can scare me with this idle talk?" he said, crossing his arms as if to shield himself from an imminent attack. Without preamble, I walked up to him and, with a decisive gesture, pulled the documents out of my pocket and threw them onto the hood of the car. The sound of the papers scattering through the air was like the crack of an irrevocable fate. "Read, Grant," I declared, my voice firm and without a trace of hesitation. As he picked up the papers, his smile slowly faded, giving way to an expression of confusion and, soon after, panic. Every line of the documents revealed the truth he had so desperately tried to hide. I could see the subtle change in his posture, his pride dissolving in the face of undeniable reality. This is impossible," he murmured, eyes wide as he ran his trembling fingers over the words that sealed his fate. I stared him down, feeling the chill of justice take shape before his eyes. That document was not just paper. It was the legacy of a life dedicated to building Harper Farm. It was the voice of our grandfather, who even in his absence spoke with authority. "It's official, Grant," I stated, each word laden with conviction. "You sold a property without having the legal right to do so. I am the only one whose signature validates any transaction. And without my 51%, the contract is simply null." With every word, the security he had built up began to crumble. His eyes, once full of presumption, now overflowed with despair. He tried for a brief moment to regain control, but it was too late. The truth had been exposed and there was no escaping it. "But," he started, his voice faltering, "but I already spent part of the money." A bitter laugh escaped me, mixing anger with incredulity. "That's a problem then. Because now you'll have to return everything you spent. You acted alone without considering the consequences, and now justice can no longer be ignored." Grant tried to argue, but his words were lost amid the storm of documents and indisputable evidence. Every excuse he offered rang hollow before the relentless truth I brought forth. The silence that followed was deafening, a silence that sealed the fate of the man who had once deemed himself invincible. As he struggled with the reality of his actions, I felt a bittersweet mix of triumph and sorrow. That defeat was not only the fall of an ambitious businessman, but the end of a cycle of betrayals that had deeply wounded the roots of our family. Grant's pride, which had always been central to his personality, now turned into remorse. At the moment his eyes filled with tears and his arrogance gave way to a desperate plea, I knew that the real lesson was about to be fulfilled. He was, after all, alone in the face of the justice that Grandpa had arranged to protect what was sacred. "You left me out of this decision, Grant," I declared in a firm and unyielding voice, "and now you will have to deal with the consequences. There's no escaping the truth." The silence, heavy and final, was the only response he could offer. In that moment, I understood that all that remained was the raw, naked truth, capable of shattering the illusions of power and arrogance. And as I prepared for what was to come next, a feeling of justice prevailed. The justice that protected the legacy of Harper Farm and honored our grandfather's memory. As events unfolded, it became clear that Grant had hit rock bottom. In the gloomy setting of Harper Farm, under the watchful eyes of everyone involved, the truth was finally revealed. That man who once thought himself untouchable and superior, now found himself cornered by an unyielding reality. His precious Ferrari, a symbol of ostentation and status, had been sold. His bank account, once robust, was now empty, and the money he had so proudly celebrated had dissipated like sand slipping through his fingers. I, Eleanor Harper, remained steadfast at the center of it all. I felt a peace that came from a duty fulfilled and the restoration of family justice. Harper Farm was not just a piece of land, it was the living history of our grandfather Franklin Harper, a legacy built with sweat, love, and sacrifice. And today that legacy was safe, protected by those who truly understood its worth. While the lawyers worked to finalize the legal proceedings, the mood on the farm was one of calm imbued with irrevocable resolve. It was at that moment that I received an unexpected invitation. A phone call from my mother, Abigail Harper. She, always the voice of reason and unconditional love, wanted to talk with me. Despite all the turmoil unleashed by Grant's actions, my mother's tired yet understanding look brought a comfort that only she could offer. At Abigail's house, the atmosphere was one of resignation, but also of hope. She greeted me with a tight embrace, as if to impart all the strength I needed to carry on. "Eleanor Harper," she said, her voice choked with emotion, "I never imagined Grant could go this far. I always treated him with indulgence, but now I see that the truth can no longer be ignored." While serving a cup of coffee, she looked at me with a mix of sadness and relief. I explained in a firm and unwavering tone that justice had been done. Every document, every signature on the will, had sealed the fate of the man who dared to challenge the family legacy. "What will happen now?" she asked, with a worried look but also a spark of hope. I took a deep breath and, with the serenity of someone who knows the value of their roots, replied, "Now I move on. Harper Farm stays with me, and forever. Let Grant learn to manage on his own. Our history cannot be tarnished by unchecked ambition." The conversation with my mother was a balm for the soul. There, among words of comfort and the firm conviction of a protected legacy, I realized I had fulfilled the mission that Grandpa had always desired: to keep our family's memory and inheritance intact. The next day, with the support of everyone who believed in the truth, I signed the final documents that formalized my total possession of Harper Farm. While Grant disappeared into the very shadow of his mistakes, I felt that every stone of that land told a story of resilience, of love, and of justice. The battle fought was not merely a legal matter. It was a lesson about how family unity and respect for the memory of those who came before us are non-negotiable. The atmosphere in the countryside was transforming, and the sense of victory was accompanied by a slight melancholy. I knew that although justice had been served, the scars left by Grant's betrayal and unchecked pride would never completely fade. However, that victory was also a new beginning, a fresh start where Franklin Harper's legacy would be preserved with the integrity he always deserved. As I walked through the old barn where so many stories had been lived, I felt that the true checkmate had been delivered. Grant had fallen into his own trap, and Harper Farm, now under my complete protection, remained as a living testament to a family that, even in the face of adversity, never allowed the truth to be overshadowed by ambition. The sun was beginning to set again, coloring the horizon with warm, melancholic hues. In that scene, I realized that every sunset there symbolized the end of one cycle and the beginning of another. I, Eleanor Harper, was ready to claim what was rightfully mine, to honor Grandpa's memory, and to ensure that our family's story remained unbreakable. That day would mark not only the end of betrayal but the start of a new era. An era where respect for tradition, for history, and for the family legacy would be celebrated and protected above all. And so, with a peaceful heart and eyes set on the future, I knew I had finally reached the highest note that life could offer: justice and the continuity of a legacy that would never be forgotten. What did you think of this story of revenge and justice? Leave your rating from 0 to 10 in the comments and tell me which moment was your favorite. Would you have done something differently? Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and don't miss any of our stories full of twists and impactful endings.